Okay, good morning, everybody. It is Friday, and I'm going to just make sure my audio cue is working here. It is. All right, everything's good. So, yeah, interesting, interesting past couple of days. And let me get over here. And, I am just going to jump into what's going on, what happened, why the title of today's stream is Measure Twice, and yeah, we're just gonna figure out what's going on, and if everything I'm doing is salvageable. You're like, salvageable? What are you talking about? Well, if you were here last week, or last stream, you know what I mean by salvageable. So we'll get into that, and we will cover all the bases here and find out if it's possible to move on from where we are, or if we have to really reevaluate and maybe change the plan and do other stuff. So to explain, you're like, I still don't understand what you're talking about, because you probably weren't here. You probably didn't see my meltdown. I mean, it wasn't a meltdown, like I wasn't yelling and screaming, but I was almost crying. It was so sad. So sad. Um, it was during the stream last week. I was progressing nicely on all the bases, making good progress. We were had just rounded all the corners on the bases. Actually, let me grab one here so I can kind of explain where we're at here. I have to shuffle some stuff around a little bit. So we were working on the bases. I got the bottoms put in, and we were like, okay, this is great. And we cleaned off the edges, made them flush, and then we did a big round over on them. So you can see these bottoms are all rounded, or the sides, corners, all have their nice large roundovers on them and everything else. And so we got to a point where I was like, well, you know what? I need to check some sort of a measurement thing here. And I don't know why I checked at that point, but I have a reference machine, sewing machine that I use for these. And I went to go put the reference machine in here, and I grabbed it. Let me see if this camera's on here. I think it is. Yeah. So I grabbed this machine from down below where I usually keep it, right here. So here's my reference machine. And I said, well, let me just put it in here and see, if I have to make, because the next thing I need to do is basically make the corner supports, which are these triangular blocks like this. And so I need to figure out, well, how deep do I need to put those corner supports? And actually, it was a different base that I had. It wasn't this base; it was a different base, and I had to cut the shelf, the rabbit cut for the base bottom a little bit shallower than I normally do. So I was like, well, let me make sure it's not going to hit the bottom of the box here. And so I just had a really weird noise coming from something. I don't know what it was. Anyway, so I grabbed my machine and I stuck it in to see, well, how much, make sure I have enough clearance. And I was like, wait, whoa, what the hell? And when I did that and I put it inside, I noticed, and I'm going to turn it this way so you can sort of see here. I don't know if you can see this, but I can stick my entire finger next to this machine. Like my entire finger goes past there. Now you're like, okay, well, here's the deal. See, I'll put it on this side. You can see it right here. Turn it a little bit more. Let me turn this just a little bit more this way. So in essence, there should be no more than 1/8 of an inch there. And better would be no more than a 1/16 of an inch gap between the machine base and the sides. I should have no more than a 1/16 on each side. I should have about 1/8 of an inch total if I shift it all the way over. But I usually leave about 1/8 of an inch gap running around the side. And I was like, well, what the hell? This right here has a gap that is, I'm going to measure it, a little over 1/2 inch, not quite 5/8, but over 1/2 inch. So I've got a gap in here, right here. Look at that gap. And it's like, oh my God, I must have screwed this base up. And then I went into slight panic mode. And I was like, well, wait a second. And I started and I measured. And then I went to every single base that I made and measured. Every single base is off by that much. Every single one. And that's when I kind of went into meltdown mode, because I have 8 bases. 8 of these that are now too big. The opening is too large, and I was like, well, I don't understand. What did I do? Well, the problem is, and this is where the title of today's live stream comes into play. So this is the piece that goes in the middle here, right? This is the divider piece. It fits in here somehow, like this, right? There you go. So it fits in the middle. But this piece is the exact same length this way as this piece and this piece. So they're all supposed to be cut the same length. And I have a chart that I keep on my wall, and I actually have a picture of it up here so you can see it. So there's a chart I keep on my wall that shows me exactly how wide I'm supposed to cut all of my pieces of wood. It shows me my dimensions, what I need to aim for when I'm doing measurements and things like that. And that's how I know how to cut my wood. When I'm sourcing, stuff for a project or everything else, I turn to that chart on the wall, and I actually have 2 of them. There's one for the smaller bases I make too, but it looks exactly like that, only different dimensions. And I looked at that, and this piece of wood right here, and all of the side pieces for any of my large bases, all of them are always cut at 8 1/8 inch. So you can look back here. So if you look on the right-hand side there, you'll see there's 2 measurements. One is the entire width, but the inner measurement there is 8 1/8 inch. That's how wide I always cut. That's how wide I always cut these things. And for whatever reason, and everybody's like, oh, measure twice, cut once. Measure twice, cut once. Well, that's true. But here's the thing. My cuts are perfect, but they're for the wrong measurement. So even though measure twice, cut once normally applies, because when you're cutting it, you want to make sure that you're cutting the length that you need, I was using the wrong length. So my cuts are beautiful. I measured them. They're exactly 8 5/8. Every single one is exactly 8 5/8. I cut them exactly to the right length that I thought they were supposed to be. My problem was not in the accuracy of my cuts. My problem was in the accuracy of my measurement. I have no idea where 8 5/8 came from. If you look at that, it's 8 1/8. I've made like 100 of these things, always with 8 1/8 inch. Here, I'll show you over here. I think I got it over here. So here's my piece of wood, and this is 8 5/8 inches long. But if you look, I drew a line right here. There's a line that I drew at 8 1/8 just to measure. So I made everything a 1/2 inch too long. Everything was a 1/2 inch too long. It should have been 8 1/8. I made it 8 5/8. I have no idea where that 8 5/8 came from. I don't know how I went over there and looked at everything. And like I said, I've made 100 of these things, and it's always 8 1/8. I don't know where 5/8 came from. But for whatever reason, 5/8 got stuck in my head. So when I started measuring these things, I just went to town. I'm like, all right, I need more sides. Let's cut all the sides. And I cut everything. I grabbed a new board and cut the length. And then let's cut the sides, 8 5/8. For whatever reason, that number got stuck in my head. And because of that, everything is too big. And that's where I just kind of like lost it and just really didn't know what to do at that point in time. And you saw how much gap is in here. It's like, well, how do I make up for that? And so here's the other issue. I had used all of my wood, my different species of wood, because I had 4 different species of wood that I was using here. So I made this box out of cherry. I have a box right here that is made out of white oak, right? I had other boxes that were made out of hickory. So this is like, I didn't have any more of that. And I got another one made out of walnut. And I didn't have any more walnut, at least not in any size that I could make additional sides or anything. The other thing is, because I had already glued the bottoms in, if this was before the bottoms were glued in, I had a chance of salvaging it, because what I could have done was very painstakingly cut into the side of each one and then gone in with a trim saw and trim these and cut down to get this piece of wood out, and then recut it to a particular size and then re-glued them back together. I could have done that, but because I've already rounded the corners and put the bottoms in, these bottoms aren't going anywhere. They're glued in really well. So I can't just cut them down to size now. That is not an option. So basically I have two options now, at least from what I could figure out for myself. I had two options. Option number one is to just say, screw it, and toss it in the wood pile and burn them, or save it for scrap for something else. Cut them up into scrap pieces and use them for some other project or something. I mean, honestly, because of the way that these are constructed, that was kind of one of my few options. By few, I mean like maybe two. So the other option that I came up with, and this is where I'm leaning towards today, is to try to increase the side width from 3/4 of an inch, which all of these boards right here are 3/4. I mill everything to 3/4 of an inch. That's my working width. But if I add 1/4 of an inch to each side, so basically cut a board, this is an overstatement, but if I cut a board 1/4 of an inch and add that width to each of these side pieces right here, then they would be the correct dimension. And then I can move on by basically, I would plane them down so that everything is flush down here, or I could use a flush trim bit even, I could do it that way. So I could get everything the same size, but these walls would then be an inch thick instead of 3/4 of an inch thick. And then I would just put the corners in and everything else. That's kind of what I came up with as a game plan to try. I'm going to try to go that way because I really don't have another option. The other problem that I have is that if you look, these have, we're going to have storage compartments. So this piece, if I can fit it in here, it only fits in one way. So this piece would basically get inserted all the way in. And then I have this storage compartment on the side here, right? Here's my problem. I cut lids already. I cut material for lids already, but I cut it based on what my normal dimension should be. So these lids, because I use a rabbiting bit to cut a groove all the way around this edge, this perimeter of this opening, and then it's 1/4 of an inch wide. So you have to add 1/4 of an inch to the thickness here to make these work correctly. And I cut these lids. Now, some of them are okay. Like this lid is fine. It's cut to the right length. It'll fit in there correctly. But when I go back and look at some of the other pieces of wood, like this piece of oak, I mean, right now it's 1/4 of an inch. It's actually less than 1/4 of an inch because this should have been an inch or basically a 1/2 inch more narrow. I had plenty of extra wood for these lid pieces that I cut. Problem is, now they're extra wide, which means I either need to cut a new base lid piece of wood, or I need to add some thickness to the inside of this wall right here, which I really don't want to do. And I've got the same problem with all of them, like the walnut and everything. So I've got a few issues. If you haven't figured out, I have issues. Yeah. So in order to move forward with my dilemma, I did not stream on Wednesday. I took the day off. Tuesday I couldn't go. I had plans on Tuesday, so I couldn't change those. And I wasn't planning on having to go to my lumber guy, but because I had no more stock, I had perfect amount of stock to finish these, and I wouldn't have to go back to him until these were all done. But I was like, well, I don't have any more cherry or any more hickory or walnut or oak to increase the width of the sides. So I had to go back to my hardwood dealer and buy more wood so that I could mill it up and add those 1/4 inch pieces onto these and see if I could salvage these bases. So that's what I did. Wednesday, I went to my hardwood dealer, CP Johnson, in Elkwood, Virginia. They're great. I love them. If you're in Northern Virginia and you need a hardwood place, and there's basically maybe 3 places to go. One of them is really specialty wood in like Fairfax or something. I wouldn't go there. I mean, they use stuff for like high-end instruments and stuff. It's really expensive wood. Another one is Colonial Hardwoods in Alexandria. They pretty much have the market cornered for this metropolitan area, and you're going to pay a higher premium. And their wood's not that great, honestly. They don't necessarily get the best wood in there. Like when I'm going in there to buy white oak, their white oak boards are kind of like trash. They do have some nice exotic-y stuff, and I've gotten some nice boards from them and such, but they're a little bit more on the expensive side. And being closer to DC and then the metro area, I mean their prices are just higher. So I drive. It's about 50 minutes for me, give or take, down to Elkwood, and CP Johnson is great. A friend of mine recommended them to me a little while back, and that's where I venture out to now. They've got pretty nice selection. If you go on my Facebook page, you'll see some pictures of their wood stacks and stuff from when I went there on Wednesday. And so my intention of going there was to basically get more cherry, a piece of hickory that I could use, and a piece of white oak, and a piece of walnut. I needed those 4 species. I needed boards with those 4 species in order to get boards to be milled up to salvage these. So that was why I went. I had to do it on Wednesday because, like I said, Tuesday was busy. So Wednesday I didn't stream. I went down there, spent the day down there, well, going down, because it's like almost an hour down there, and then about an hour for me shopping around, and then about another hour. So it's about 3 hours round trip for me to do everything I need to do down there, which they close at like 4:30, and traffic and everything else. I don't like to go down there. I like to get an early start, get down there, get my stuff done, and come back. So that was streaming time. So that's why I did not stream on Wednesday. So I went down there, and I found boards that hopefully will work for what I want to do. The problem when I go to CP Johnson is they have a lot of wood, and they have some really cool stuff. And I really, I made this comment. I said, I really should just take cash when I go down there. I should just have cash in my pocket, because that way I will be safe from spending too much money. It's like, well, you can't spend more than the cash you have in your pocket. It's like going to Vegas. You only take with you what you can afford to lose, right? Well, I did not do that. I had my credit card. So anyway, I'll show you what else I got, because I got some cool stuff. And this is stuff that is not going to help me fix these things, but it will be used for different projects as I move forward. So this right here is sapele. I've used sapele before, and I've made sapele bases. They look really cool when they're done, but it's quarter sawn sapele. Quarter sawn sapele gets these really cool kind of stripes going through it. So hopefully you can kind of see that. So this is quarter sawn sapele. So I got some of that. I've got my stacks of lumber here, so I kind of have to move things around. Let me save that for a minute here. Let me get this over here. And, oh, here's another new one that I've not used before. So this is another wood that I have not used before. This is paddock, or paddock, or paddock, or I don't know how you want to say it, but I call it paddock. It's P-A-D-A-U-K. Pronounce it how you like. And this is really cool wood. It's 4/4. So I get them cut it. So I've got a piece that's actually probably, this is 4 feet long. I've got another piece that's about 6 feet long of this, and it's got a good width to it. So the width on this is, how wide is this puppy? This is 7 inches wide. So I can make 3-inch strips out of this. So I can make a base out of this, but it's got a really, it's kind of dark right now, but when you plane this stuff up, it's got this really cool orange color to it. And it's a little bit of a long striping kind of grain. You can see the grain running through here and stuff. So very cool. Never worked with this before, but it was awesome. I also got a couple of really nice pieces of walnut. I've got some figured walnut, not figured, but it's what they call rustic. So rustic walnut is really interesting the way that C.P. Johnson does it, because it's actually cheaper. It's like $4 a board foot or something like that. And it's usually because it'll have knots in it, and it has, it's not clean wood, what we would call clean wood. This is a piece right here. But to me, it's like they should charge more for this stuff than less, because it has, usually this is cut in areas where there's limbs and knots and things like that, but you get like crotchwood areas and stuff like that, but you get this amazing grain flow through here. Like, look at the grain going, you can see the grain in here and stuff. It's got this flowy grain going through it. You get some really cool feathering. I think this stuff is beautiful. And once you get this cleaned up and you get, now there are some things in here, like there's a knot right here and stuff like that. Some of these things will not be really good. There's also another like little knot right in the middle right there. So you have to take that into account. But if you plan your wood out accordingly and take select pieces, this has some of the most beautiful grain of any walnut that I've ever used. So anyway, I got some of this, and like I said, it's not, in terms of expense, it's not that expensive. I also got some nice clean stuff. I got some white oak. I got cherry, obviously. One other piece in here I want to show you that is one that I have not used before, and really excited about that, is this. This is, I don't know if you can actually, let me go to camera 4, see how that looks right here. There you go. This is zebra wood. If you've never used zebra wood, this is what it looks like. And I don't think I need to tell you why they call it zebra wood, because it's kind of apparent, right? This is cool stuff. This is also the most expensive by board foot wood that I have ever purchased. So by board foot, and that's how I buy all of my lumber, is it's priced by board foot. And typically anything like, I don't know, we'll say red oak, right? Red oak is like $3.50 a board foot. And then you basically take the length of the board, the width of the board, and then the thickness of the board. You multiply all that together to give you your board feet, and then you multiply that board foot measurement by the price. And that's how you come with how much your wood is. This board, it's like I said, $3.50, usually like cherries around $6 a board foot, somewhere $5.50 to $6 depending on the width of the boards and things like that. That's kind of a typical price. Walnut is $11 a board foot. It's pretty pricey for clean walnut boards. It's about $11 a board foot. This particular board, well, first let me tell you how much board feet I have here. I believe this was 10 feet long. And I also have when I do my stuff, I have a calculator that's called a board foot calculator. And it just allows me to figure out my board feet. So this thing is, we'll call it 4 inches wide, and it's 4/4, so 4 inches wide. And what did I say? It was 10 feet long, and it's a 4/4 board, which means it's 1 inch wide. So there's 4/4 in an inch. That's how they talk about wood at a lumber yard. They call it quarters. So if it's 1 1/4 inches, they don't call it 1 1/4 inches. They call it 5/4. If it's 2 inches, they call it 8/4. So there you go. Know your quarters. Anyway, at 10 feet by 4 foot by 4/4, that gives me 3.33 board feet. He's got it marked here as 3.4 board feet. The price on this was $19 a board foot. I've never bought a $19 board foot piece of wood in my life. So that's pretty expensive. So this one board that I bought, now this is, I cut it down. So this is a shorter piece. This is 4 foot and there's another 6 foot piece because I can't fit 10 foot long boards inside of my SUV. But that 10 foot piece of wood that's 4 inches wide is basically $64. That's a lot for a piece of wood, right? But as I told the guy, I said, well, that $64 piece of wood is going to easily be $300 worth of bases when I'm done. If I can maximize my footprint on it, I will not be doing long ones like this because I don't have any wood that I can use for a lid for a storage compartment. Either that or I'd have to make a really skinny one for storage compartments. But I should have enough to make at least 2, maybe 3 bases on there that are shorter. And those will be probably $140 a piece, 130 to 140 for the short ones, just because of the wood species. So they'll be expensive, but I think it'll be worth it. And they look so cool. So I know that people will probably love this stuff. So I did come away with wood that was very premium. I have never spent that much money buying lumber at one time. But I thought to myself, well, I've got the stuff to fix what I need to fix. And I got more than that. I got more than just what I would need to fix. So I got some extra of those species so that I can make some more bases in that kind. I gotta wipe my eyes here, I apologize. So I can make some more stuff, but along with fixing what I've got here, hopefully, because that will or will not work, we'll find out. But the other thing is I've got, I've got some extra stuff that is pretty premium between the Padauk and the Sapele and the Zebra. That is all premium stuff that I'm going to be making bases out of. So I think those will look really cool, and hopefully I can kind of, I don't know. I was inspired when I saw all this stuff there, and I was like, ooh, because they had a lot of domestic lumber, and I was really excited about it. But that's where we are. That is basically our mission for right now. So now what we need to do, by we I mean I guess, is I need to, let me put some of these boards away. So I need to get to the wood. You can't see this. I'm off camera, I apologize, but I need to get to my wood over here that I'm going to use. Now actually, I did kind of tell one fib here, not really a fib, but, when I was talking about not having wood to fix this stuff, I do have, and this will be kind of a good determination for how successful we can be. I have 2 boards here that are walnut, and like this one has a very clean edge to it. And then this one has a pretty long clean edge right here. And so to start with this experiment on whether or not we can make this work, I'm going to move to the walnut base. Let me rearrange here. I've got all these things stacked up on the side over here. So give me just a moment to restack and make some room. So we're going to basically try to fix this in a way that allows me to put in some 1/4 inch pieces. That will mean I need to split these down into 1/4 inch width, or yeah, 1/4 inch width. Right now, these are, let me get my calipers on here. So these are basically about 3/4 of an inch because they were milled down with the rest of the stuff. So they're, you know, within a 1/16 or so of 3/4 of an inch. I'm trying to find 3/4 here. That's 13/16. I got it the other way. Yeah, so maybe just a hair thicker than 3/4 of an inch, but they're right in that 3/4 of an inch range. So I need to take these pieces and I need to cut pieces that will fit inside here that are 1/4 of an inch wide, and I want to be really exact with the measurement of it. And then I'm going to glue those in a 1/4 inch piece on each side. I'm going to glue it, I'm going to clamp it, and get a good clamp on there, and hopefully I can then plane it down to be the exact same height as these pieces. And I mean, I'll cut them close to the depth I need, but I'll leave a little bit tall, and then we'll plane them down and get it nice and looking nice and good. The only question I have is, do I stop right here where this board would be inserted? If I get it inserted, one of these, please, there we go. So do I stop right here and, you know, cut me a couple of boards that are 14 3/4 inches in length? Or do I go the entire width? Well, actually, I couldn't do that. I could make my boards this way and then cut separate pieces to fit in here as well. And that actually might be what I want to do for this particular base. For this particular one, I might do that. The other option I had, this is another option that, that I had thought about. So these machines, let me kind of back up a little bit. I know there's a lot of talking this morning, but I kind of had to tell you where I was at and what my headspace was and where my brain was going for fixes and things. So I'm going to bring this back up here. So this sewing machine, the way it fits into a standard table or anything else, it has these holes back here. And these holes are used for, I don't know if I have any here or not. I don't see any. Sometimes I have them sitting here. But those holes are basically meant for hinges. And those hinges are referred to as lollipop hinges. And I don't have any here. I don't think I do. Let me check my little box here, see if I have any lollipop hinges in here. I don't think I do. So anyway, those are meant for these hinges called lollipop hinges. And the lollipop hinges, I usually don't do anything with that because it requires a large piece of wood in the back for the hinges to go on. The other thing is that when you have those hinges on, that's meant for more of a table application. If you put them in a base, well, there's nothing to support that weight. So when you tip these back, and they're meant so you could tip the machine back and get underneath it, but if you tip this back on a base, well, the base isn't heavy enough in front that it would keep it from falling over and crashing. So I typically don't include hinges. It's just like, nope, if you want to put it in my base, there's no hinges. But if I did that extra 1/2 inch piece of wood, they would be thick enough so if we wanted to do hinges there, we could do that. So I thought about that for just a minute. I was like, well, I could put a thick piece in back and then do the little, you know, drill outs for the hinges. Problem is, there's more than one hinge type. Even in the lollipops, there's small lollipop hinges, there's large, there's kind of a medium. Depending on the year that the machine was made and the model of the machine and everything else, there's about 3 different types of lollipop hinges, and I would have to know exactly which machine was going in which one to make the appropriate sized lollipop hinge hole. And I was like, screw it. That's just too much. That is way too much. If I was making a custom base for somebody that I wanted to do that with, then that would be fine. But because I don't know, I was like, there's no way I'm going to mess with that. So, all right. So let's just look at this. First of all, let me see how wide this is, because this board may not even be, I think this board's out of contention because I don't think it's wide enough. This is only 2.5 inches, and my depth here, yeah, so my depth is almost 2 3/4. So this is about 1/4 of an inch, not wide enough. So right off the bat, loser. This one is wide enough. This is 3 inches. So that gives me a spare 1/4 of an inch to get off of here. So now if I'm 14 3/4, is that what I said? So 14 3/4 would give me 28 something. So I can get both of those boards out of this piece of wood. And I'm just looking to see if I've got a clean edge. See, I don't have a clean edge. So really, I don't have enough to do 2 of them. I can do 1 out of this board. That's a shame. I was thinking, oh, I got this. I can do 1 off of this side right here. I can cut it down to 14, or cut it to 14 3/4, and then we can make it 2 3/4 inches wide, and then glue it in there. So I can do 1 side of this. So I will have to basically mill up some more wood to do this with. And the other thing is, do I really want to have, I think I could get enough to do that. Let me see here. Let me just take a measurement here. I'm going to get rid of this for the moment. Now the way I will probably do this is with a with my table saw, because it's just easier to mill these with a table saw sometimes. So I'm going to measure that there and see if I have enough wood. Maybe. I might have enough. I might have enough to do this. And get both of these sides in here. But I could take this other, I could take part of this other one and do it. So I can get both pieces on here. This piece, and then I have to do it in 2 separate pieces and fit them in there. So I can get those, 1 side out of this board. I'll have to get another board, which means I'm going to have to do some milling, because all my wood is rough cut. But now here's my thought. I don't need to mill them down to 1/4 of an inch. I just need to get them flat on 1 side and 1 edge, and then I can use my table saw to cut them into the 1/4 inch strips. So instead of using the jointer for that, I would use my table saw and my planer to get those down. So what I might do, I can do it 1 of 2 ways. I can cut the board into a 3 inch width, or I can plane 1 side. I can use a jig, a flattening jig on my planer. That's a different thing. We haven't really done that too often. But I'll tell you what I want to do. Let's go ahead and start this crazy experiment by cutting this 1 board down to the size it needs to be. And the other thing I have is this board is a little bit warpy, so I need to make sure that it's going through flat when I get this down to size. It needs to be flat when it goes through the table saw. So I'm really kind of running in no direction here. You're seeing me, I'm going to be spitballing these ideas here as I push through this, because why is that all of a sudden hot in my pocket? Shouldn't be that warm. Yeah, I'm just trying to, like I said, this is a salvage operation. I'm trying to make this up as I go, and I'm trying to make sure that this stuff is going to be as clean as possible, so that it doesn't look like I'm fixing a screw up. It's not what I want it to be. So I'm going to take, I got no camera angle over here. So let me pop a camera angle over here for you guys. Over at the table saw. I did not know what I was doing today, so I didn't set up all my cameras, but this will just take a second to get us over here. And then we'll There we go. We're kind of in that area there. Okay. All righty. So if I go to camera 3, now we're over to table saw. And the way I would do this is I would take my blade here, raise that up. Where's my piece of wood? I didn't get my piece of wood here. I can do it one of two ways, one of two things. And this is probably what I would do. First thing I will probably do is take the width of this down because it's wider than I need right now. So I will take the width down to a usable width that is more appropriate for inserting in the box. So to do that, let me get a measurement inside the box here once more. I just want to make sure that I've got an accurate measurement here because we're all about accurate measurements, right? That's what we got. So this is just a hair under 3/4 of an inch on both sides. I mean, I'm going to say I'm going to go 1/8 of an inch wider than 3/4 of an inch. That gives me room to kind of clean things up. I'm at 3 inches on here. So if I take this to, well, let's leave 1/8 of an inch. So we'll say 2 7/8. All right. And we're just going to check that for accuracy. So that's 2 7/8 set right there. And I will cut this down to width. Now, the other thing I want to figure out is which side I want to cut off of. I've got a little knot right here, so if I lose some of this knot, that actually gives me more usable wood on this side. So I think that's what I will do over here is cut it off on that side because I want a clean piece of wood up top. When this thing gets glued in, I want to have one clean edge to match up with the edge of the existing wood up on the machine. So up here, this is pretty clean wood up on the top. There's no knots or dings or anything there. So I want a clean piece to be glued on the inside of here. So when I put it inside, there'll be a clean piece inside here. So we want to make sure we've got a clean edge to work with. And that means I need to inspect this and say, well, where am I going to take that wood from? Am I going to take it off of this edge or this edge? I actually am thinking I'm going to take it off of this edge now. Now that I look at it, there's just a little teeny knot here. This big thing, I don't care if this gets put at the bottom, as long as it's clean up top here. So I think that's what we're going to do. Let me look for I think this had pencil marks on there to show which was the planed, bottomed, squared. I thought I saw one on here. That's the problem with pencil on walnut. It doesn't always show real well. But anyway, I think this is a nice straight edge. It is. So we're going to use this edge right here. We are going to run this through the saw right here. I'm going to raise this up so I get a nice clean cut. So we're going to make this board a little less wide before we actually trim it for thickness. I think that's what we're going to do. I have no idea. Making this up as I go. Life is exciting. Okay, let me set up a gripper here. I've got this one set. This one, yeah, I can use this one. So let me get this set so I can get a nice push here with this. Okay, that's nice. We're not taking much off of here. We're taking like 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little less than 1/8 of an inch off of here. So it's not much. We're just trimming it up. Oh, and you know, it's always important, I find, to plug your table saw into a power outlet. Just, you know, it does add a little bit more to the cut when the saw is running. You know, because you try to push it through the saw without power and it's just, you're not going to get a clean cut. So let's try just plugging it in. Maybe that'll help us a little bit. Let's give that a try, shall we? I'm such a goober sometimes. All right, here we go. It's just a wafer thin. All right, that is not bad. And even though I said I was going to take it off at this end, I didn't. I cut it off. I'm an idiot. I'm a dummy. But anyway, all right, well, you know what? We'll use this. It doesn't really matter to me as long as I got clean sides here. That's the other thing too, is I need a clean edge to glue. So I want it to be nice and flat and clean. So I will probably plane the side of this thing. Okay. So this is my flat side right here. So what I'm going to do is, this is going to go like this. I'm going to measure. It's just going to be 1/4 of an inch. It's going to be one slim 1/4 of an inch. That's all that's going to be. I can go just a little thicker just for some planing, like maybe a little jointing to make it clean, but not much. So that's it right there. And then I needed to get the height up here because I'm going to basically use this as a resaw. So this is going to go high. How high is it going to go? I don't know yet. Let's see. It needs to go about halfway. So if I'm a little under 2 7/8, we'll call that 1 1/2 minus a 1/16. So that'd be like, 7/16. So let me see how thick we are here. So that's too tall. I actually want to leave a little meat in there, and I'll probably clean this up at the tables or at the bandsaw. So I'm going to go down a little bit. I don't want to cut all the way through this piece of wood yet. I'm going to run through this way, and I'll flip it, run it through this way, and then hopefully I'll be able to trim this thing down to 1/4 of an inch. Yeah. Now I do have some rough wood on this side that didn't get planed. It was a little thinner here, so I want to make sure that edge is out. So we're going to run this through just like this. I do need a push block or something here because I do not want my hand to be next to this thing as I'm pushing it. I can use this, I guess. There we go. So I have a push sticky thing right here. So as I'm pushing it through, I can get it through there. Don't like my fingers really next to everything. So we will do that. The other thing I can do is I can put a feather board right here that will hold it tight against that side as I push through, and I think that's what I'm going to do. Let me grab a feather board out of here. And then we will set that up for the correct width here. Because the feather board's really important because it keeps it tight against the fence, so you get a nice cut without having to use your hands to keep pressure on there, but it keeps it. So I'm going to push it this way, and then I'm going to push this side in. And then you have to really crank this down. I'd love to get a mag one that is a lot easier to use. But anyway, you can see that it's like, as I push it through, hopefully you can see that the board is going to be pressed tightly. And this is just behind or in front of the, you don't do it up here on the saw side. You want it where it's going right before it goes into the saw blade. If you do it up here, what happens is it can push that wood into the saw blade. That can cause kickback. You don't want that. But you do want it held close to the fence as it enters the cut. And that's the whole point. So that's what we're after right here. All right, well, you know what? Make sure I'm on the right side. It's go time. Let's do this. It's only wood. We can always start again if it doesn't work. So that's my first cut. And you can see, if we look right here, it's a nice, beautiful, straight cut. We've got good width all the way up through here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece of wood, and you can see how deep that went too. So it went about that deep. We're going to take this wood and we're going to flip it over. We're going to send this through this way, and that should give me a nice even cut on the other side that we can then trim off. We can run past this through the bandsaw, and it'll just make a nice, it'll make short work of that little piece that's left in the middle. So let's cut that one. All right. So now what we're left with is this piece over here might be different widths over here, but these widths right here and right here should be exactly the same. There's a little bit of piece of wood. I'm going to put it right there in front of you so you can see it. There's a little piece of wood joining them right down the middle of this thing. We can take this over to the table saw and we can clean that up. So I'm gonna pop a camera over to the table saw over here. Maybe. Let me zoom out so I can see where I'm pointing. There we go. That looks good. Okay, so we can take this piece of wood now over to the table saw and then clean up this piece of wood. I think I've got camera 2 on there. And here's another one of those bases. Just gonna move it out of the way. Now, I have this side right here. I'm gonna put that against the fence. And then this is actually just a little, let me move this back just a hair. Just a hair. We just want to shave that piece of wood off right inside. And I'm just going to use this as a guide for how my stuff works here. Let me line this up a little bit better than that. That might look good. See, this has the mag holders on the back, so I can reposition and it locks down really nicely. I like that a lot. Okay, that's pretty clean right there. Let me get my dust collector because this will make a bit of dust. And we don't want that floating in the air. So I'm going to hook this up. And all right, let's go ahead and cut this and see what we come up with here. My scrap, this is my good piece right here. And you can see there's a little bit of a stripe going down the middle of it. And that's the excess wood. So let me get a little closer and you can see that there is a little bit of wood. It's not very thick, but that little piece of wood needs to be taken off. Now, there's a couple ways I could do that. I could do this, and I think I will try to do it with the hand plane to control the flatness of it. So let's come back over here for a second. So what this is going to do is this is going to sit inside here, and this is going to get glued to the inside of this piece. I can't obviously do it right now because it's too long. But anyway, it's going to get glued inside here. So what I can do, I know this seems like a lot of work, and it is. But, you know, when you're stupid, you just make more work for yourself. I'm looking for grain direction. This is kind of funky, so I don't know how well this grain direction is going to clean up. What I'm going to do is clamp this. Take my ears off because I always talk too loud when I have those on. I'm going to clamp this down to my work surface here. And let me move it back a little bit. I don't need to do the whole thing at once. I'm going to do part of it here. But I'm going to clamp this piece of wood down to my table and clamp it really hard. And I'm going to grab my plane and I'm just going to start cleaning this strip off of here. And it's not going to take a lot of wood off to start with. It's going to be a minute before it can really get down to size. But the nice thing is I've got the two sides here, which will act as a reference surface for the rest of the cut. So I am getting, you can notice I am getting some longer shavings now. Just start dumping those out. I'm getting some longer shavings and it's bringing this down in size, which is what we want. And once I get one side down, I'll flip it and do the other side. So down here at the end, still a little bit left. Kind of clean that up. So getting some wider shavings, which means I'm getting into the base now. Most of them are really thin still. But this end is almost done. Still a little bit down here. So I can work this pretty aggressively right here. Down here. A little bit. And the other thing is I can also sand those down too. When they get really low, I can finish it to be sanded down. That's pretty good. Right here, it's still a little bit. Pretty good. Yeah. Let me get my block plane here just to. Because the block plane, a little bit lower, a little bit smaller, but we'll clean up some of these lines a little bit better because it rides in the grooves a little bit more. The long plane kind of skips over the top. So if there's any little bumps or anything, the long plane is going to skip over the top. The shorter plane, the block plane, is going to ride in those grooves a little bit more because of its shorter length and give me a little bit more cutting accuracy down here. I'm getting a little bit of those cleaned up. Like I said, some of this I can just clean up with the sanding as well. So I think what I'm going to do is flip this around now, because this side down here, so you can see this side now is pretty clean. But as it comes down towards this side, you can see that there's still a bit down here that needs to be cleaned up. So I can clamp this down to the cleaner side now, and then have more surface. There we go. Those are really good clamps. But more surface down here that's not been touched, and we can start cleaning that off. And I mean, I'm getting tons of shavings. It's just that it's a thin strip of wood. I can be just, let me just be a hair more aggressive here. I'm just going to lower this just a tiny bit. It's just a little bit more aggressive. Not much. Because like I said, I don't want wide shavings down here. I just want to take off that little strip that was left, and I'm getting pretty close to being done here. What notification do you have for me? Notifications. Okay, whatever. Okay, we're pretty close here. There's a couple places right here. And then what I'm going to have to do is cut this to length to fit it inside the base. Hey, look, it's a telemarketer from Herndon. I think I'll pass. Thank you, though. Thank you, AT&T, for letting me know it's a telemarketer. I appreciate that. Better than it used to be. It hasn't really cut down on telemarketer calls, but at least I have more of an information as to whether it is one or not before I actually pick up. So, whoop. Didn't like running the grain that direction. That's okay. Yeah. It's not crazy about cutting this direction now. Let me just see if I can clean up some stuff with this. But we're pretty clean now. Right here is a little bit over. Okay, so now we've got this piece, for the most part, cleaned up. And remember, any of these marks and such will be on the inside, not the outside. So really what I'm concerned about is this outer edge. Then what I need is a measurement for how I'm going to do this. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this first one. I've got a nice clean edge right here. And I can put that clean edge, well, I think I got clean edges on both sides. Let me see. Hang on a second. Let me just, I think as I shave this off, that would be nice and clean. I don't want to round that corner. I want that corner to be nice. I want that edge to be nice and sharp because as I glue it in here, I really need that to be really glued down and tight to this piece of wood. But that looks pretty good. So I need to cut for the length now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do two things. I'm going to take this over to my saw over here, my compound miter saw, and I'm going to make two cuts. The first cut is going to be just to clean up one edge and make sure that it is square. And then the second cut will be for the exact length that I need. But I always like to start with a square cut. And this looks to be square, but I mean, well, let's see, it's not quite perfectly square. I don't really see any light through there, so that's actually pretty clean. And I'm going to put this through. This is my working edge, though. All right, well, let's go ahead and measure exactly how much wood we need here. Let's be super exact with this. So I'm going to measure this. And I need this to be, it's 14 3/4, but it is just like a 1/28 under that. It is really, 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 really thin from there. So I'm going to run this at 14 3/4. I'm going to make a mark on here at 14 3/4, and then I will shave it down. Oop, broke my pencil lid. I'm going to shave it down accordingly. I'm going to go at 14 3/4, and if it's just a little wide, I will just take a little bit off of that instead of you know, cutting too much. I just want to, I'm paranoid about cutting too much off. So I will just shave it down as needed. I'm going to put my mark here. All right, let's go over to the saw over here. I think, can you see? Yeah, you all can see me over here at the chop saw. I'm just going to make a really quick cut here. So I'm not going to set up a camera or anything for that. I am going to make sure that I am got all the dust out from the fence and that this thing is really sitting flush against there. And then I'm going to measure, get this right on my line there. All right, I'm going to get some ears though, because this is a very loud saw. Probably not even going to hook up dust collection because you know what? I'm just not in the mood. And it's so fast and it'd be very little dust. Check this. I think I just screwed it up. I know I did. I just screwed it up. You know what? I'm an ass on so many levels. I think. Well, maybe not. I thought I screwed it up because I thought I cut on the wrong side of the line. But I don't think I did now. Okay, I did not. So let's go to this one. I'll show you what I've got here. So here it is. It's pressed into this corner. I'm going to actually put this corner in here because that's nice and clean. So it's right here. I've got a little tiny bit of overhang. Just the slightest amount of overhang right here. I mean, I'm talking, let's measure that. How much overhang do I have here? I have 0.01 inches of overhang there, I think. Hang on. Let me zero. Let's measure that again. I have, that's millimeters, 0.0655 inches of overhang. So very little. So let's go back over here again. I'm going to shave off just a tiny bit here. I'm going to shave off just a hair. I like to do that is to push into the saw. Just nipping that off just a tiny bit here. And maybe just a little bit more because I need it to be even with this edge. So there's an edge that this board fits in, and if that's too wide, it won't fit in there. So it needs to just be right there. All right, one more little cut, and I think we'll have this. And I'm okay sneaking up on this measurement right here because, you know, let's do it right. I'm just going to square this off. And then it's, wow, just so close. So close. I mean, it is really, really, really close. So close that I think what I'm going to do is this. I think I'm going to just try to do it this way. Just shaving it off there, just a tiny bit with the hand plane. Just a little bit more, just a tiny bit more. You know, there's nothing wrong with doing this. You know, everything doesn't have to be fast, right? I mean, it's okay to take your time and do things a little slowly. Now this, I don't want that to chip out though. That's where hand tools really come into their own, is it just allows you to really finesse a cut sometimes. That's really good. Really good. In fact, if I just kind of hit this with the sandpaper, that's really good. So now this is a perfect fit. I mean, I can just a tiny bit here. Let me just hit this one more time with the big plane because it's sharper. There we go. All right, let's see what we got here. It is sharper and it will do a really nice job. That is perfection. So I'm going to pop this over here so you can see exactly what we're looking at here. So there you go. So this piece is going to get glued right here. And you can see that inside area right here. That's what we were going for in terms of getting it nice and clean and straight in there. So if I take this board and I stick it in here, it has, well, you know, get it going the right direction. There we go. But it has no problem fitting in there. And you can see that that's a really nice, tight fit. Now, the board's a little taller than this, but we'll take that down with a hand plane once we get it glued in. So I'm not worried about that at the moment. Like I said, my concern is getting a nice, perfectly fit board in here. So now, before I move on, I gotta take those ears off because I always talk too loud. Before I move on, I'm going to glue this in here. I'm going to make sure that all the dust is out of here. And this has a little bit of a knot right here, but I'm not really worried about that. If I put it inside, if I do it like this, that knot is buried on the inside. You can't see it. The only thing I need to do is clean this up before I put it in there because I can't clean it afterwards. Once I get in there, sanding it and such would be too difficult. So I think what I want to do is just kind of sand this a little bit. Those little marks right there would show if once I put oil on it and stuff, they'll stand out. So I need to make sure that really this is cleaned up. And to do that, I'm going to use the sander. I don't really want to have to, but I'm going to. What do I have in here? That's like a 80. I don't need an 80. Maybe like a 150 would do. What is this one? It's a 150. Maybe a 150. And we're just going to clean up those marks on the inside here just to make them a little less obtrusive and ensure that the inside profile, once this thing gets some stain and stuff added to it, is nice and clean. Now, remember, this is just one side. I still have to do the other side. And that's why this piece was a little longer, because once I have this set up for the other pieces, it shouldn't take me as long, but I do have some more work to do because I'll have to plane the boards and stuff. So anyway, let me get this sanded. Once again, put my ears on. I can't tell you how disappointed I am in that Ryobi, which I don't understand why. That's the second one of those random orbital sanders that I purchased that doesn't spin when you put it down on the wood. Um, it just kind of jitters. It's like a jitter sander. It's like, that's not what I want. I want one that actually spins. I might have to pop for a more expensive, like mechanical random orbital sander or something, because honestly, that one just doesn't do it. So I spend all my time doing this. Yeah, not happy with that at all. And I had a rigid that did the exact same thing. And I'm not sure what the deal is. My skill sander that I had spun like a demon. It was so good. So it was random, orbital, and it spun like a demon. This one, not so much. I could not give my recommendation to any of those particular things. Anyway, that is nice and smooth now. So for what it's worth, this piece of wood is good to go. Where did I put my base? My base. Now, I got this. Let me dump it out here. So I've got this set up. I'm going to glue this in. I'm going to try to get this, yeah, just like that. And then I'm going to put a lot of clamping pressure on here. And the nice thing is it's really easy clamping because it's just clamping board to board to board to board. So I'm going to run clamps across the length of this thing. And I might use, got a couple different clamps I could use. You know what I like? I'm going to grab these. These are really nice. You're like, grab what? I don't see anything. Hang on a second. 3, 4. So these things right here, let me show you these. These are really cool. So these are made by Craig. And they are kind of like auto clamping. So you basically, and they've got a large circle surface here on each side. So you kind of get a spread out. Can't have any dust in there. Anyway, I'm gonna have to vacuum that out before I do this. But anyway, as you put this in here, it spreads that clamping surface out, and you can vary the clamping tension. There's a little adjustment thing here. So if it's too loose, just turn this. That's too tight. Turn it the other way until you get just the clamping force that you want. It's a little loose. There we go. So I can get hundreds of pounds of clamping force on here with these things just by adjusting that. And they're, like I said, they're really nice and easy to use. Because of the large circle on here, they do spread that clamping force out over a larger area than, say, maybe an F clamp or something like that. So those are pretty nice. Let me clean this out because I don't want any dust or anything getting inside of here. So if you're looking at me like, why are you vacuuming the clamps? Well, it's because they sit on the end of my router table over here. So as I'm routing, just tons of router dust falls into these things. And I don't want that falling into this area that I'm getting ready to clamp. So I just cleaning up the excess stuff. All right, I'm going to get my glue. Let's go ahead and we'll just do this. You know, let's just get it done here. It's not gonna, and it's either gonna work or it's not, right? And right now, I'm very confident that it's gonna work. Now, what that means for me is I've got a lot of work to do to get these other bases in the same shape and in the same state where I have boards that I can put in there. Because I'm, like I said, there's, yeah, a lot of wood that needs to be done. I'm wondering if I can clean this board up. This is the offcut. And I'm wondering if I can clean this up and do it on the other side. So I'm going to check that in just a minute and see. I just needed a paper towel because as I'm gluing this up, I'm going to have a lot of glue and I want to be able to wipe it off on something. So I'm going to glue onto the board here, get an ample amount of glue on here because, well, you know, we want this to be a nice glue up. Where it's really important is on the edges. So this edge and this edge. The long edge here, the long edge down here on the top. We really want those to be firmly glued to the receiving end of the board because that will give us our really nice, hopefully crisp, clean edge. So I'm just gonna spread this glue all around with my finger and then I'll kind of clean it off here in a minute, but I'm getting as much spread as I can. Like I said, all the edges need to be even and then I'll kind of clean some of this off like this. So a little much, but that's okay. Glue be cheap. Bad joints are expensive because they don't do what they want you to do. And then I'm gonna, like I said, right down here, make sure the glue's there, and then clean it again over here, just to make sure. I got a little in that knot hole, but I don't think that really matters. You're not gonna see that knot hole anyway. All right, this is our edge. I'm gonna go ahead and stick it in here now, right to the edge there, and right onto here. And then I'm going to apply clamps. Clamp, 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 clamp. So pressing it against the side here. This first one, I'm going to put it and I'm going to clamp it right to the edge in this corner right here. And make sure that I've got a lot of clamping pressure as close to this top while still getting the rest of it clamped in. But that top area there, make sure that it is really clean right here. Okay, time for this one. Let me make sure I've got enough clamping pressure. Maybe I need to adjust it for this one. That's pretty good. I'm gonna go to this end. There we go. And now I'm gonna put these around the inside. Kind of equally space them out here. Needs a little bit more clamping force here. Which way is the right way on this one? A couple of these are different. They changed the design, so right up the top here. That's good. Oh, that's a lot of clamping force. Oh, heck yeah. And then this last one right here. Ah, there we go. Okay, that is part A of our fix. Now, it's not perfect. It's not solving all my problems just yet. But it's half the problem solved, I think. Another thing is, this is going to look better for the darker colored stuff. I think it will blend a little better. I think once this is stained dark, well, this will actually not even get stained. This is going to get oiled. But I think once that oil, I think a little bit more right there. I might need one more here. I'm going to move this over and get one more right here. But once this stuff is once it is oiled, that oil will darken the wood significantly. Pardon me, I got a lot of dust in this one. It'll darken it significantly, and I think it'll be much harder to see. This needs to be much tighter. Much tighter. And a little bit more. There we go. Oh, that's perfect. There it is. All right, now we got it. So 5 clamps on there. But like I said, the oil will be much darker. And let me grab something to show you what I'm talking about. Because I have, pardon me for walking in front of you, I have I think this is it. Yeah, this is it. Excuse me. This is waiting to be lacquered, but this is a walnut base right here. And if you look at the contrast in color tones between this one and this one, I mean, well, here, let's do it easy. Look at the difference in color between these two, and even there it's hard to see. How about down here? So there you go. You can see how much lighter this raw wood is right here than the oiled wood. And this is actually got a little dust and stuff. But I think having that darker edge, or that darker wood, will hide some of this extra work that we've done. Now my fear is, fear's a little strong of a word, but my concern, that's probably better. My concern is that as I work with some of the lighter colored stuff, even the cherry, not a problem because I stain the cherry dark. So the cherry's not that big of a deal. But once I start working with the light stuff, which would be maybe the oak and definitely the hickory, because the hickory's not going to be stained that dark. I actually have a hickory sample here. Yeah, so the hickory is only going to be like this dark. It's not going to be very dark at all, as opposed to this is the regular color and this is with stain applied. So not that much darker, not really going to hide as much, but I'm hopeful that between getting good cuts and getting it really nicely matched up in there, that I'm able to fix it. Now, this base right here is trash. This has moved on. I will never fix this one. And what happened to this one was I was trying some experimental stuff. I'm like, well, if I have to screw one up, let's make it this cheap little one right here. And I cut it into it with my bandsaw. I was like, oh, maybe I can cut these little pieces out and then just squeeze the whole thing over and it'll be all good. And no, because then I started rethinking it and I was like, well, I still got the problem with the bottom and everything else. So this was an idea that did not work. So this is scrap, basically, is all this is. It's scrap. It's just scrap, man. It's just scrap. So that didn't work out well. But this, I think, is a much better plane. Now, the other thing is I've got another piece here. Remember, I've got that piece, and I need to do this piece right here. I need to do this short piece. I need to cut a piece out of here. And I'm looking at this thinking I can get one on this side and one on this side. So I can get both of those sides out of this piece right here. Because let's see how much I'm looking at here. I'm looking at basically 3 3/8. So we'll call it 4 inches, and I've got 8 inches of clean wood here. So I can get both of these out of this piece. So that's good to know. The only thing I need is to get one out of here. And I'm thinking this piece right here, I might be able to get this down. I think I've got a good side right here to use on here. Let me check the width on this. Let me see how wide this piece actually is. Part 0.3 inches, so it's wider than I need, 0.34. So I could actually take this over to my jointer and remove some of this extra wood and get this down to a usable edge. Or I could pull the planer out and plane this down a little bit and make sure I keep those sides square. But I could get this extra side out of here. And I think that's worth trying. I mean, you know, what do you think? I think it is. So let's go ahead. I've got so much crap laying around the shop now because of this screw up. I've got bases that are needing all this stuff done and everything else. But like I said, I'd rather get one of these done. And the one you're like, well, why the walnut one maybe? Well, A, because I had pieces of wood that I could cut and use. So that's one reason why. I'm moving bases all out of the way here and hoping they don't crash. But I've got to set them somewhere. Floor storage, that's what I'm using. Yeah, so, and that walnut is, like I said, that one is of particular salvage value for me because it's for my friend, for his mother's machine. So I really want to make sure that I can do a good job on that. And if I can get a really nice save on that one, anything else I do, I really don't care about. You're like, where did you go? I'm off camera. I'll switch this camera over here. I'm gonna use my planer, which we're gonna need it anyway. So let me widen out here. Whoop, there we go. You can't see that. You're like, what are you whooping for? You can't see anything. Sorry. There you go. Now you can see. So let me flip the planer around here. This is my flip top cart. An excellent, excellent tool if you have limited shop space and you have a couple of big tools that you use quite a bit. So you can see I've got my circular sander on there, my 12-inch circular disc sander, and then my planer mounted underneath. So I can rotate these like this. And now my planer's up top and the sander's down bottom. So that's pretty handy. I think you will agree. Yeah. All right. So it takes me just a minute to get this all hooked in here. So let me get it all squared away. But anyway, so I wanted if I could salvage that walnut one, because I've already done the engraving on the front with his mom's name on there and everything else. And I really, you know, it's not like I didn't want to have to start over, but I'm thinking, you know, if I can save that one, anything else I can salvage out of this dumpster fire is a win in my book. So, what was I going to say? Oh, so yeah, I was also saying that I was thinking about this extra wood that I got, right? I bought all this other wood to use for some other projects. And in thinking about it, I might do some different joinery, even though I'm going to do bases out of them. I might do some different joinery. So maybe I'll do some box joints. I have a box joint jig that I don't use very often. I think I originally got it to do sewing machine bases, and I kind of got away from it. But I think I might actually start using that again. This is my little table arms here. This does not have drop down arms for it, this particular one, because it's old and it comes from Harbor Freight and blah blah blah. So anyway, that's my makeshift one. It's a melamine. Oh, excuse me. Oh, I am going to blow my nose now. I will come off camera and I'm going to mute myself so I don't make you listen to that. Okay, we are unmuted. Hopefully, probably have to sneeze and blow my nose again. It usually happens a couple times. Lots of dust. Oh, excuse me. See, there it goes again. All right, so what I'm looking to do is shave this little, you can see it, there's a little rough patch. This is flat, so this side is flat. So I think if I can feed this through and flatten this thing out, I've got a little bit of wood to spare on here. So I have some leeway. So I'm going to lower this down until it's just about in the right spot. And then I will gently shave off the amount that I need. Just need this to just barely catch that. There it is. Okay. I will just start from there and then lower it just a tiny bit each time. I have to blow my nose again. I'm going to put my ears on and the dust collection and everything, so you won't hear anything anyway. I don't think is there anybody in the chat saying anything? Oh wait, there's somebody in the chat. Noodle Soup is in the chat. I apologize for not seeing you sooner. Pardon me. Says clamping is like a small workout. Depending on what you're clamping, it can be a large workout. These clamps are really nice in that they have a lot of pressure and they're kind of like spring loaded. So once you get them in there, man, they are rock hard. They do a really good job. Like I said, those are made by Craig. I got them originally to do like pocket hole stuff, but I use them for all kinds of things now just because they are self-tensioning. So it gives me a lot of latitude. All right, I'm going to fire this thing up. It's noisy. My noise cancellation is going to kick on. You won't hear anything, hopefully, but you'll see me working and doing this. All right. That got that down to 1/4 of an inch really quickly. So yeah, so this is going to work out well. So here's my other piece. It's pretty clean. I'm going to just lightly sand it. The only problem I had is you can see on here, hopefully you can see, let me switch this camera. You can see there's lots of knots and stuff in this piece of wood. It's got a lot of figure and shape to it, but did definitely get some chip out areas in here from the planer. I don't know if you can see that in there. Definitely some bigger chip outs, but I think where I will cut this, I will be able to salvage that out of here. So not a big deal. Not too big a deal that way. And once again, I'm just going to do the exact same thing. For this piece, I'm going to cut it, fit it into this side over here, and then we'll clamp that in as well. And wow, I don't know why my nose is running so much, except that I'm throwing a lot of dust in the air. Is what it is. Some days are dustier than others. And you know, it's funny, it's not that hot today, but it's super humid outside. So, pardon me. Super humid outside. So it's feeling a little thick in here. But let me check the squareness of this board. So see if I have to cut. That's really square on the end there. I mean, like super square. And I can use it this way. Actually, this looks really nice. So I think if I just, this will actually look really good inside there. Nice straight grain right here on the edge. A good side right here. I need 14 3/4 inches cut off. So we're going to get my tape measure and we will make a mark on there for this. And then we will sneak up on it. So I make it slightly oversized. Remember, I do a little bit more wood on the end, and I'll sneak up on it and hand plane off any excess that I need to. Let me make my mark on here. And I'm going to put an X on the board on the side that I want to cut off, which I didn't do last time and I should have, just to make sure that I'm not cutting on the wrong side of the line. That's a lot of times that's my problem, is I'll measure right, but then I cut on the wrong side of the line. So put a big X on there on this side, lets me know that this is my keeper. And then we need to wander over to the saw again. Oh, my cord's getting all tangled up in the thing here. So let me put some power back in here, and we'll wander back over to the chop saw real quick. And we will cut this down. Just make quick work of that cut. That's really nice. I'm just going to make sure that I'm keeping pressure against the fence here. Like I said, make sure that the dust is all cleared out of the fence so that I'm getting a really nice straight cut over here. Let me get that right on that line. And I am going to put ears on because this is noisy. It's just a noisy saw. All chop saws are noisy. All right, so now I can come back over here and check this. You know, I could not work so hard and flip this around. It'd be easier probably. Oh, it's so heavy with those clamps on there. They're so heavy. There we go. Got dust all in here. I want to make sure that I'm getting an accurate cut here. Let's see what we've got here. How did that happen? How did that happen? Did I grab the wrong? What the freak? Okay, my brain is just in perpetual stupidity mode. Oh my God, I am an idiot on monumental levels. Can we try this again with the correct measurement? Now that was not measured twice. That was me being stupid. 14 3/4, you idiot. I'm calling myself names, rightly so, because that was just a stupid rookie mistake. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm not paying attention. Just stupid stuff. And you know what? I'm live, so I can't edit it out. You get to see my stupidity live on camera because I'm an idiot. Measuring twice here. There we go. 14 3/4. 14 3/4. I am so stupid at times. But you know what? No sense beating myself up. We'll just move on. Pretend like that didn't even happen, and this is my first cut, right? Works for me. All right, got my first cut done. I'm such a fool. Such a fool. All right. It's all right. It's still got a nice clean piece to work with here, so. And I am a little over now. I'm checking it. Now I can start knocking a little teeny bit off each time and then working it into, let's just start nibbling away at this. So we are going to sneak up on this cut. And actually, I think it's pretty close to the point where I want to try maybe using the hand plane on this and get it that way, because if I take any more off with the saw, I'm probably going to go a little too far. So I'm going to use the hand plane here. It's really sharp. And try to get that flat and level. And just clamp it hard. Get some leverage here. Okay, and then check it. Almost there. We are really super close here. Really close. Take a little off of this edge too. I can finesse the corner fit just a little bit here. Trying to keep this flat. Yeah. It's nice having a very sharp plane. That is a nice fit there. And whoo, just a tiny, tiny bit. I'm going to take that off of this side now because I've got the other side fitting in that corner just the way I want. So I'm just taking a little edge off of here. Oh, got to clamp it down a little bit tighter. There we go. There we go. All right, this should be another perfect fit here. And that, well, I mean, I'm using my finger. I'm like 128th, something like that. It's like really, really, really thin, but I can still feel it. So that means, you know what? I've got a little bit of room to finesse here. So let's just keep working on it. Oh, stop it. Okay. Wow. All right. I mean, I'm just taking super thin little tiny shavings. You can't even see them. They're so small. But, ooh, that feels good. That feels pretty good right there. All right. Part two. How many of those clamps do I have? I have a couple more of these clamps. I have a lot of those. I've got a couple more of those, and then I have a bunch of other like F-style clamps and such that I can use. So I will try to do it that way. As we insert this other piece in here. So we're going to go ahead and glue this one up. Like I said, the important thing for me right now is that this piece right here, well, it won't, yeah. So this piece right here should fit and not be bound up by that piece that we're adding in on either side. Okay, just be a pain in the ass that way. I cut these really tight, but anyway, there we go. So it should not interfere with this piece being inserted, and it does not. It perfectly matches up. Because if it overhung that slot, that dado cut, by any degree, it would not allow that piece to fit in. This looks really good. It's going to be very flat up against there. So I should get a really nice glue joint. So really, the only thing we have left to do is glue the joint. Grab my towels here so I can wipe the glue off my fingers. What time is it? 12:53. So I'm going to probably be doing this exact same process to all the other bases all weekend. Because honestly, they all need to be done. I have the donor wood, and that will, you know, create these 1/4 inch glue-in panels. And, you know, all I can do is try to fix what I screwed up. But I think this is going to work. Like I said, I know it's going to work for the darker wood. So for the cherry, for the walnut, not going to be that big of an issue. I don't know about the oak. The oak is not that dark when I stain them. I use like a mahogany gel stain on the oak just because I like the way it looks. I could go with something a little darker, though. I haven't really tried anything darker lately. I might try a darker stain on the oak this time, just because, you know, to change it up a little bit, because I usually go that mahogany gel stain, but I might try something different. Who knows? Now remember, I still have to do the short pieces too, which I've got a piece over here that will accommodate that, so that's not an issue. Right now I just want to make sure I've got really nice glue all along this edge. And then I'll kind of clean some of this off of here. I don't need a ton of squeeze out on here, that's for sure. Oh, on my pants. Awesome. That was great. Clean the glue off my pants here. But anyway, I've got a little extra glue here. We're going to just wipe it off there. And then get that spread out. Okay. So this is very well covered now. So all of the edges, I've got good glue coverage. There we go. So I've got good glue coverage all across this thing. It's very evenly spread. So when I put it on here, it should give me a really nice glue joint. Clean my fingers off here before I get glue all over everything. Okay. And let me grab a couple of these other clamps right here. Like I said, these things, they sit down below my router table, so they pick up a lot of dust. But I do really like these things. So the way this works is it has a handle here, there's a spring in here, a little spring in here, and a tensioning knob right here. And as you press, they're basically, they adjust to the thickness of the wood. And you still get that massive pressure when you clamp these. So I'm going to start at this end, I think, and get this one. Now it needs to be a little bit tighter, because I really want a good clamp up on this end. I might come back and tighten that one up actually just a little bit. And I'm going to do the one on this end, then I'll do other clamps in the middle here. See, I got this stuff falling down inside. I don't want that inside my glue joint. Yeah, this is too light, so we need to tighten this up. It doesn't take much on that screw either to really change the amount of clamping. Oh, see, that's lifting it. Don't want it lifting. Let me loosen it just a little bit. That's a good joint, I think. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna bring this up and get it right here so I can get maximum clamping. There we go, like that. Then I can grab some other clamps here. I don't think they're gonna be nearly as good as that clamp. But, you know, let me put clamps on, and so now I'm just going to go across the surface here and start clamping this thing up and applying pressure. Oh, hang on a second. Because I need to see glue squeeze out here across the top. Lets me know that I'm getting good clamping pressure. I'm not so concerned about the clamping at the bottom as much as I am the top. I need to really get a nice, super tight clamp across the top here so that it makes a really nice, tight, and almost invisible seam across there. I'm more about getting that seam really closed up so that it's much more transparent, so you don't really see that when you're looking at the base. So I'm going to put these things on here and try to really close up those gaps on here. But tough to do. It's pretty good. Oh, that's nice and tight. All right, well, I think I've got it pretty good here. Could probably get one more on here. I mean, I'm not going to be shy with the clamps, at least in the first few minutes of clamping, which are the most critical because you're getting that initial bond. And that's really what you're after, is that everything else is just time. But that initial bond is what really kind of seals that wood to each other. So, all right, whew, that is a lot of freaking clamps, my friends. So many clamps. What time is this? 1 o'clock. I'm sorry, I'm not sure why I'm so sniffy today. I just am. But anyway, just to kind of bring you in line with where we are, these pieces on the side were cut too long. They were supposed to be 8 1/8 inch. I cut them to 8 5/8 on all of my bases. Have no idea why. I just did. I didn't measure them incorrectly. I cut them all exactly 8 5/8. So my measurement was really exact. It was just the wrong measurement. So it should have been 8 1/8. I've made 100 of these things, all 8 1/8. I don't know why 5/8 stuck in my head. It did. They were all screwed up. In order to rectify that, I'm adding wood to the interiors of these, because otherwise there's a 1/2 inch too much space on either, on the interior. So in order to get rid of that 1/2 inch of interior space, I'm making this wider. This will be 1 inch of wood on the front and the back. The side will remain 3/4 of an inch because the width-wise, I was perfect. It's just the interior space was too wide. So I'm using these boards on the inside to take up that space. Not a big deal. It's just harder to get them cut and sized and glued than anything else. Once this is completed, I will shave these down. I'll just use my hand plane and shave these down so that they are the same height as these, and basically hopefully look like just one piece of wood. I know the grain won't match perfectly, but hopefully close enough that that it will not be like glaring when you look at it and go, oh my God, what the hell did you do? You won't even look unless you really look close. That's my goal. So I got to get those done for every single one of these. And once I have that done, I can continue on in this process. So that's kind of where we're at. I've got, like I said, I bought some new wood on Wednesday that after I get this kind of straightened out and move forward, I will start making stuff with some new wood, new choices, maybe try some new joinery. And I don't have a problem trying new things, especially with, like, if I'm making bases out of that zebra wood that I have, yeah, why not use a box joint, you know? I don't know, I might go back and do some dovetail joints, depending on the wood. Some of it might look cool. Maybe the Paduke would look really cool with dovetails. I don't know. Maybe I'll just do box joints and do like, these things are 3 inches, so I could do like quarter inch box joints or half-inch box joints, or finger joints, whatever you want to call them, half-inch fingers, half-inch box joints. I have an adjustable box joint jig, which is really nice. And I haven't used it in a while, so I really would like to get back into doing some box joints and such, because once you start, it's really fun to work with. The biggest thing is I would have to make adjustments to my measurements, and because that actually would be using wood that is 8 5/8, not 8 1/8, because I will have to account for the extra half-inch of wood that it would need to stick out on each side, because box joints don't go interior, they go from edge to edge. So the end of the piece of wood goes to this end of the board. So you need to account for that. Right now, it actually is 1/4 inch shy of being to the end of that board. So anyway, it's a really cool thing. You do it all on the table saw. If I was doing dovetails, I do those on my, I've got a jig for that too, which is really nice. And I do those on my router table. So I think, yeah, that is probably, when I get around to making those new bases, I might play around with some different joinery and see how that comes together. And I think that would be really cool to do something different. I like to mix it up a little bit, especially if I'm using new pieces of lumber, new species and such, because then not only are you seeing a new species of wood, but the new design. So it kind of it's all fresh and new. It's not always just the same old thing. And perhaps, that would be, I can get some repeat customers out of that too. That's the thing about doing this stuff, is you don't get a ton of repeat customers, because these things, if you make them right, they don't go bad. And a lot of people won't have multiple machines that need these things. Some people are collectors and do acquire numerous machines, like my wife. But a lot of people will have, like my friend that I'm making this one for, he's got his mother's machine and he wants to display it. And that's the way a lot of people are. They're not going to sew with it necessarily. They just want to clean it up and display it. It's got sentimental value. It's ornamental. I make them so that you can actually use these. Like if you've got a hand crank for it, you can sew with them in the base. And but for a lot of people, they're ornamental and they don't necessarily have numerous machines that they want to, display. So not a lot of repeat customers. I do get some, like I say, collectors who get stuff and they want my bases to put their collections in, and that's really cool. But I like to mix it up too, because maybe they want something different, or they've got a really unique machine that needs a really unique base, like zebra wood, right, or Paduke or something. So we'll see how the Paduke, I'm not sure. We'll see how that goes. It's orange, so we'll see how people respond to orange wood. I've also got the quarter sawn sapele, which is really pretty. Sapele's in the mahogany family. It's beautiful, beautiful stuff. It pretty easy to work with, pretty easy on the tools. Yeah, hickory is a pain in the ass. I will never use hickory again. Just saying, never ever. Never say never, but if I have my preference, I will not be doing a lot of hickory stuff in the future, because hickory is really difficult to work with. And we'll see if I can get 1/4 inch boards to fix these hickory bases too. That's going to be interesting to test that out as well. But anyway, my plan moving forward, I'm going to finish this. We'll get these 2 pieces cut for the interior here. And then this will clamp and dry, and then I'll cut them down, and then this one's done. The other ones, I have rough lumber. So let me set this aside for a second. Oh my God, so heavy. So heavy. That's a lot of clamps. I'm going to set this aside just to show you what I'm going to be working with in terms of fixing the other ones. And I actually have the piece of wood right here. So I'll walk over here with this. So this is I actually just got a small piece of hickory right here to fix the hickory bases. And this is pretty thick too. So this is 5/4. They didn't carry any 4/4. So I had to get a 5/4 board. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to put this on a sled, which is basically a flat piece of MDF. And the MDF becomes the reference for the planer. So it'll reference the flat bottom of the MDF and then plane me a flat surface on the top of the board. Once I have a flat surface, I can take it off the MDF, flip it over, then it would use this flattened surface as a reference for the bottom side. That being said, I don't really need to do that. I just need one flat reference. I can take that flat reference over to the jointer, put the flat side, the new flat side against the fence on the jointer, and then get one square edge. Once I have a square edge and a square face, you know, those two are square, I can take it over to my table saw. I can actually cut a thinner strip, right? I'll cut a thinner piece of wood out of here. I'll take it over to the table saw. I'll do the exact same thing I did to this, where I will cut thin pieces out of that. When I have those thin pieces cut out, then I will cut them down and size them and put them in. But I do not need to finish the other side of the board to do that. I can do this with just two finished surface sides. So that's kind of a bonus for me, is that I only need two surface sides. So we'll see how that goes. And, you know, it's gonna be a little bit slower, but you can see, I can probably, if I just take one of these and that's enough to get both sides out. I can get a couple of them done because it's very thick. So out of this, and I only need 1/4 inch pieces, I can easily get 3, maybe 4 1/4 inch pieces out of this, depending on how much I need to plane off to make it flat. But it all starts with my sled. I had to put it on the sled to run it through the planer because I need that reference surface. So I will probably put it on the MDF and then check it for tipping or anything. You don't want it to tip. It has to be perfectly done. And basically what you do is you take a shim. If it's high in one spot, you'd shim it under there, whatever. Then I usually use hot glue or a toenail screw into it to keep it from moving. Run it through, get that flat reference surface on the hickory, on the one side of the hickory, and then from there it's gravy. But that's the hard part, is putting on the sled. My sled's really long and it's much longer than this board. So anyway, lots of stuff for me to do, but I'm not going to subject you to that. Just for reference, if you don't have a jointer, this is one of the ways of actually squaring up your wood into 4 squared sides, is to use, you have to have unless you're going to do something like hand tools all the time, which, you know, more power to you. But if you are not looking to do that and you want to add power tools, but adding a jointer is kind of out of the question, and getting a jointer is really difficult. I think a jointer will run you $600 to $700 for a real basic one like I've got. I got mine on Craigslist for $150. But if you want a real basic jointer, you're going to pay for a 6-inch wide jointer. You're going to pay between $600 to $700 for that new. But I will say you have to have a planer. You don't need a jointer, but you do need a planer. And the way you do it is you create a sled, you mount that board to the sled, and you get one flat side. Then you take that flat side over to your table saw. By the way, you need a table saw too. If you don't have a table saw, you could use like a track saw. You put the track saw on the flat side of wood and then make sure your blade's cutting at 90 degrees to that track, and then you'll get one squared edge. And then from there, you can put that through your table saw as well. To get the other side done, you can basically flip it over then, run that through the planer. Now you've got 3 square sides. And that last one, you really need a saw or something to get that last squared side. So I would say table saw and a planer are what it really takes to get 4 squared sides. You can do it without a jointer, but I will tell you that a jointer is lovely and makes it a lot easier. So, but there's lots of people who exist and are really super successful and don't have a jointer. I just find that using the jointer for me in processing my rough wood is such a time saver and does such a great job that I am glad I don't have to do without. And it's one of those tools I always think of upgrading too. I would love to have like an 8-inch wide, because that would be awesome. Like I could do an entire face, like I could do this entire face on an 8-inch wide jointer. Right now I have to cut it into thinner strips to do it on my jointer. So, but because I do everything basically in 3-inch wide strips anyway, like all this stuff, most of my stuff is this wide. So, you know, making thinner boards is not that much of an issue for me. Okay, I think I'm going to end my stream today on that note. It's like 1:15 almost, and it's about lunchtime. I've got some stuff to do at 3 o'clock, so I want to make sure I can get some lunch and be ready for that. And then I'm going to probably spend the afternoon, at least, if nothing else, working on this. Well, I'll finish off those little 2 pieces on the walnut board, and I will start planing this hickory board this afternoon. And maybe when I get to the other boards, before I clean it up, maybe I'll do an episode on jointing without, or squaring up wood and milling without a jointer. Maybe we'll do a whole episode on milling wood without a jointer, just using a planer and a table saw, and some different jigs that you can make and stuff like that. So I think that's probably a good thing to do. So we'll do that on a different episode, because like I said, I will have excuse me, I will have some boards that need a lot more milling than just these. So that'll be good. All right, gang, thank you so much. Hope you've appreciated or enjoyed my my royal screw ups and my attempts to not look totally stupid and fix them. I've tried to be as creative as I can while still keeping the same aesthetic to the machines and to the bases, not the machines, but to the bases. And hopefully my fixes will work. And when all is said and done, you know, they'll still be worth the dollars that I like to charge for them, I guess is the point. I mean, these may be bargain, these may have to be bargain items to just basically cover my costs, just because of my screw ups. I don't like to put them out there and say, hey, these are screw ups, you want to buy them? Because, like, really, that sounds horrible. But anyway, we'll see how these turn out. And I'm hopeful, having done that one walnut, I'm hopeful that this will be a good solution. And anyway, thanks for stopping in and checking out the stream. I really appreciate it. I love it when people stop by and throw comments out there and say stuff. I wish I could be more involved in the chat windows, but as you can see, you know, working in a shop requires me to move around. That's why I try to narrate a lot of what I'm doing, so that at least if I'm not chatting with you, I'm explaining and not leaving any questions hanging in the wind. So anyway, have a great weekend. It's Friday. Go have yourself a really good weekend, and come check this out on Monday and see where we're at. Hopefully we're at a point where we can just be moving forward, not stepping back and fixing. Moving forward would be awesome. So anyway, have a great weekend. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. You know, get your shots. Stay safe. All that good stuff. And come back and see me on Monday. Until then, take care.